Hi guys, I'm going to do things a little bit different today. I know that Mary has had lots and lots of questions about how to mail things, and I've seen other people make a few mistakes when they try and mail things. So this video is going to be all about how to mail things, and you're asking yourself, but Kira, what do you know about mailing things that I don't? Well, guess what, guys? I used to work for the United States Postal Service. My husband still does. He's a mail carrier. I used to be a clerk. That's actually how we met. And I'm going to teach you everything that you need to know about mailing your flip books and pocket letters. So I'm not going to really talk about postcards because I think that people that mail postcards probably know how they're supposed to mail them, what they're allowed to have on them, what's going to require more postage, etc. So we're just going to get right into letters. So a letter is going to be like this, an envelope. You're going to stick a card in it or a few pieces of paper. It's just a letter. You're going to address it down here and put a stamp up here and send it on its way. But a few things that need to be mentioned about letters is they can't be over a certain thickness. So while this might fit a pocket letter, especially a mini pocket letter, that can't be mailed as a letter. You can't just stick one stamp on it and call it good. So thickness is a big reason for that. I have here this template. This is what the clerks use up at the window when you're mailing things. This helps them figure out if something is oversized or if it needs to have additional postage or go a different way. So if you have a letter like this, and it's just got a couple pieces of paper in it, it's flat, it fits through this slot right there, that's good. You can send it as a letter. One stamp if it's under 1 ounce, and that's all you need. If it's going internationally, you need a little bit more postage, but there are forever international stamps that you can use as well. What you cannot do in an envelope this size is put something like this. So you've got these cute little embellishments you've got at Hobby Lobby, and you decide you want to send these to your pen pal, which is great. You should totally send these to your pen pal because that's really sweet. But when you stick something like this in an envelope, this is no longer a letter. This is actually a package. So instead of the 40 whatever cents it is when you're mailing this, it's actually going to be around $2.50 to mail this. I'm not going to talk about specific postage prices because that varies from year to year, so it's not really necessary for me to go over exactly how much you're paying. You can always look that up online. But just know that this is no longer a letter. So you try and stick it in, and wait, Kira, it fits through here. This is the other problem. It's rigid. These buttons cannot bend, so that makes it a package. Also, there is a variance in the width of the envelope itself, so that makes it a package too. I know it seems weird. It's not that big. It fits an envelope. It's not that heavy. You should be able to stick 2 stamps on it and call it good. You can't. It's not. You will get charged either postage due on your recipient's end, or they'll send it back to you and make you put postage on it to resend it. And I know there's people out there that are like, but Kira, I have sent stuff, and just like that, in an envelope with 2 stamps, and it got there just fine. My pen pal didn't have to pay postage, it never got sent back to me, so you're full of crap. Guess what? I'm not. That sounds snarky. I'm sorry. But I'm not. So if you happen to send something like this and it makes its way to its pen pal, it's just the post office not having a perfect system. So things can get so it's like if you drop it off the post office, then the clerk at the receiving post office didn't catch it. Then it went through the plants and they didn't catch it there. Then it went to the post office that you sent it to, and they don't catch it there. By the time it gets to the carrier doesn't know what the appropriate postage is. You could go ask your carrier how much a postage stamp is right now, and I would guess that 95% of them don't even know the cost of a postage stamp. Seriously, go ask them, because I'm pretty sure that I could ask my mom, my dad, and my husband right now how much postage costs, and not a single one of them would know how much. and all of them are mail carriers. So they don't know what they're doing. So once it gets into their hands, they're just going to deliver it. But if it comes to them and it says postage is due, then they're going to collect postage from you based on the amount that's written on the envelope. So if you've sent something like this and it's gotten its way there, it's just luck. It's not that you are doing it the right way. It's just that you got lucky that it didn't get caught. So you might get lucky this time, maybe next time, maybe the next 10 times you get lucky sending something like this. But there could be a chance that it catches up with you and that they do end up catching something and charging your pen pal for that item being sent. So maybe you bought these for $3.99, 50% off, which is what I bought them for. So it was $2. So you sent this $2, you put 2 stamps on there, which is a little less than $1. So you spent $3 on this thing, and then it gets to your pen pal, and they end up having to pay the difference of what you didn't pay, which is usually about $1.83. So it's now just cost you more money to send this than it would have cost them to just go to the store and buy their own. So you kind of have to think about, like, is it worth it to me to make them pay? Is it worth it for me to pay the amount to send it to them? You just have to kind of think about that stuff. So, letters. There's also a few other things that I need to mention about letters, like square letters. So this is a 5.5 by 5.5 envelope. It's vellum, which is completely fine to mail. The only thing that's wrong with sending letters like this is that it has to be, it has to have a non-machinable surcharge added to it. So if it's a square card, it means it can't go through the machine. So what machines do, everything's handled by machines now, by the way. So people don't actually handle these things. So the machines have the letters go through, they read the address, they slap on a barcode, and then it goes to the next machine, which reads the barcode, and it sends it to the right place. But when it gets a square card, it doesn't know which way it's supposed to flip the card. So the machine doesn't ever able to read the address because it doesn't know which way is up and which way is down. So these kind of letters have to be handled by people and not by machines. So that's why they cost a little bit more to send. I still think that it's worth it to pay the 21 cents additional to send it, but you just need to be aware of it. Same with something like this, where it's got these cute little closures. This little bump, it requires a non-machinable surcharge as well. Same with if you have something with maybe like an enamel dot on it, or maybe you've bumped something up on a card with some foam tape, that would require a non-machinable surcharge as well. Another thing that requires non-machinable surcharge is a little tiny envelope like this. This also can't go through the machines because it would just spit it up and lose it. So this requires a non-machinable surcharge as well. So even though it's tiny and you think, hey, a tiny little envelope should cost less money to send, it actually costs more. This is also a letter. I know it looks big, but you can actually send letters this big. The maximum size that you can send is this plus a little bit longer. So it can't be any taller than this, but it can be a little bit longer than this. So you can send these in the mail, and if it's less than an ounce, it just requires 1 stamp. If it's more than an ounce, then it requires more postage, but it can't be more than 3.5 ounces. That's all weight and everything. You can do that either at home, on a scale at home, or you can go to the APC machine, which is those machines out front in the post office, and weigh it on there. If you send something like this and then you address it this way, so the envelope is this way instead of this way, that would require a non-machinable surcharge as well. So something to keep in mind when you're addressing your envelopes. Moving on to large envelopes. So, like I said, this was about as tall as you can get with a letter, but with a large envelope you can get a little bit bigger. I'm going to show you this, even though priority we're going to talk about in a little bit. This is the size of a large envelope, so this would be something that you stick some papers in and then you send it like that. This can also be considered a large envelope because of the thickness of it. It's too thick to be a letter because it's padded, but it can go as a large envelope depending on what you stick inside of it. So I'm going to show, this is a flip book that was made by Mary for me. And I took most of the stuff out from inside of it, so it was a little thicker than this when she sent it to me. But we're going to stick this in here as if she had sent it to me in this packaging. So you got this in here, in this envelope. And this is how I think a lot of people are sending their flip books. This is how I've gotten a couple flip books sent to me with postage due. So I've had to pay to get flip books sent to me by my pen pals. So send them in these bubble mailers or in another envelope that's not padded, but a large envelope as well. And when they go to the APC machine, they go out there, they stick it on the scale, and they start putting in all the information they need to make the machine do its thing. And when it asks what they're sending, you have the option of picking letter, large envelope, or package. And most people see this and say, well, it's in a large envelope, so it must be a large envelope. But it's not. This is actually a package. So the thickness of it, let's bring out this template. The thickness cannot be more than 3/4 of an inch thick. So this is 3/4 of an inch right here. Most of my flip books are always over 3/4 of an inch, but some flip books that I've gotten have not been over this amount, and you can stick them through the slot. This is too thick. So I can't stick this through the slot, so it has to go as a package because this is the maximum thickness of a large envelope. Now say it had fit through that slot, so I shove it through like that, which you can't do as a clerk. You have to actually stop when it stops. But say that's a little bit thinner and I was able to get it through the slot. So then what a clerk is gonna do, they're gonna start bending your package. Okay, so if it's able to be bent and it's not rigid, then they'll say, okay, yeah, it's a large envelope. But if they can't bend it, if it's something that should be bent, or say you've even written on there, do not bend, and they know that it can't be bent, it has to go as a package. So that's, I think, where a lot of people get confused, is why it's in a large envelope, so it should be a large envelope, but it's actually a package at that point because it's too thick and it can't be bent. So let's talk about pocket letters, because those, I've never gotten one, I've never sent one, but I know what they look like and I know what they're filled with. So a pocket letter is going to be very similar to a flip book in the fact that sometimes you won't be able to bend it. Like maybe you've put some wood veneers in there or something like that in some of the pockets. You won't be able to bend it. It's not necessarily going to be rigid, but if you have things, like I said, like wood veneers that would make parts of it rigid, it would have to go as a package. But the big thing about pocket letters is the varying thickness of it. So you'll have some pockets that are thinner than others, and then some that are stuffed full of goodies for your pen pal. If the thickness varies more than 1/4 inch throughout the package, so we'll use this as an example again. So you've got this part right here, which is obviously less than 1/4 inch, and then this part over here, this is more than 1/4 inch, and then this part over here, which is a little bit less as well. That means that it has to go as a package. So that variance in width of the package makes a big difference as far as how to send it as well. So that's that on pocket letters. A little bit on international. I don't want to go too much into it because it varies from country to country. So if you send something to Canada, it's a little bit cheaper from the US than it is than if you send something to Australia. Not a lot cheaper, but it is a little cheaper. So the big thing to remember with international, my tip for international, is to keep it under 8 ounces. So once you pass that 8 ounce mark, their price jumps up. Cheapest price to send something internationally is 8 ounces, and it's about $13, $14 to send that. So I always keep mine under 8 ounces or right at 8 ounces. I will stuff it as full as I can and keep it at 8 ounces before I mail it off. I always mail international. I print out the postage online. It's the simplest way to do it because you can fill out your customs form online, and then you can rate your postage online, and then you can either have your mail carrier pick it up, or you can drop it off at any mailbox, because if you're keeping under 8 ounces, you don't have to have anybody check the actual package itself. So keep it under 8 ounces, and you shouldn't have anything to worry about. And that's including the packaging itself. So I think a lot of people get confused on that too. So you have something like this that maybe doesn't weigh that much, but then you add this with it and it adds some weight to it, and then say you add some tape to it, then it's going to make it even more. So it really is the entire package completely packaged up. That's the weight you have to think about, because that's how they weigh it at the post office. They don't consider what you have inside of it. So it's really best when you're mailing internationally to either use a padded mailer or I don't want to say a thinner box, because you don't really want to use something that's thin because it might get damaged in travel. But you just want to make sure that it's not too heavy, because if you're using a really thick, heavy box, then that's going to take up a bulk of your weight, which may make it either more expensive, or it's going to make it so you can't put as many goodies inside of it. So something to consider. Also, a little tip, if it's like over 8 ounces a little bit, like I've sent a couple of things that are like 9.5 ounces internationally, they're not going to check. Seriously, they're not going to check. They will check if you send something that's 2 pounds and you say that it's 8 ounces. They will look at that and say, yeah, they're lying. And they're going to weigh it and they're going to send it back to you and say that you owe them postage. But if it makes it to customs, you're in the clear. So you always get a tracking number and you're always in the clear. Speaking of tracking numbers, when you mail something in the United States and you mail it as a package, which like I said, most of the stuff that we're mailing, these flip books, these pocket letters, they should be going as packages, you get a tracking number with that. You always get a tracking number with first class packages now. It's not just priority anymore, it's every piece of first class package mail that you send, you get a tracking number with, which is really convenient, because I have sent stuff to pen pals and I haven't heard anything. They never posted anything, they got it, and 3 weeks had gone by and I hadn't heard a single thing from a pen pal. And of course I keep all of my tracking numbers, and so I checked my tracking, and sure enough it had been delivered, and so I was just able to send a message to my pen pal saying, hey, it says it was delivered today, you actually get it. And then, they were able to confirm that yes, they did, or oh, they're going to go pick it up at the post office tomorrow, or whatever the story may be. So it's really important to keep your tracking numbers. I know that Mary has not kept hers before, and something had taken over a month to get there, and she still doesn't know where it's at as far as I know right now. So it's really important to keep tracking numbers. Another thing with a tracking number that I think makes it kind of nice is I had something that I sent to a pen pal, and it had said that the carrier had left a notice for her to pick it up at the post office. And so I asked her, I said, hey, did you get the notice? Are you going to go pick up your package? And she said, oh, I never got a notice. So she somehow never got the notice. I don't know if things happen. But she didn't get the notice that said that she had something in the post office waiting for her. So I was able to tell her, oh yeah, they left a notice. It's at the post office. She went to the post office, picked it up, and that was that. But in the case of Mary, where she had sent something to her pen pal, and they said that they never got it, it had been a month, and no word on that, it could have been that the carrier left a notice for her pen pal. Pen pal never got the notice, or it got thrown away or something. Anyways, they didn't get the notice, and then so they didn't know that they had to go to the post office to pick up their item. And then what will happen at the post office if something's not picked up is they'll leave a second notice. Usually after 2 weeks, they will send a second notice. or actually after 10 days is the rule. So after 10 days, they should send a second notice. And then if they hadn't picked it up within a 5-day period after that, then the post office will send it back to the sender. This is another thing that's not a perfect system with the post office. So something could sit at the post office longer than that, but some post offices are really good about it. So it just kind of depends on how well staffed your post office is, if they're going to get the package back in time or not. So there's a lot of reasons why a mail carrier wouldn't leave something for a person at in their mailbox. So say you sent a flip book and the carrier leaves a notice instead of leaving it in your box, and you're like, well, why did they leave a notice? Why do I have to go pick it up post office? It's really up to the mail carrier why they do that. Sometimes the mailbox is too full and they can't fit it in. Sometimes it's a name that they don't recognize on the package itself. So say you had just moved into a place and you didn't put your name on the mailbox to let your carrier know that you live there. Maybe they don't want to leave something that they don't know belongs at that house. There's a million reasons why they wouldn't leave something for you in the box and why they would just leave a notice instead. So I'm not going to go into all those reasons, but just know that there is reasons why they would do that, and that you should always make sure you keep tracking numbers so you know where that package has gone to. Last thing I'm going to talk about, I know I showed this earlier, but this is a priority envelope. This is a flat rate envelope, and I also have here a flat rate express envelope. It's blue rather than red, and it says express on it, which is how you know that it's express rather than priority. These envelopes are available for free at the post office, which is great, except you have to pay more to use them. So priority mail right now I think is around $6. Priority mail express is around $20, $21 right now. And again, those prices vary from year to year. So you can use these and you can send your mail in them, but you're gonna be charged more. So you can't just take one of these envelopes and cross off the priority part and send it first class and call it good, because it's not going to work like that. They're either going to send it back to you and say you owe us more postage, or it's going to get to the person that you sent it to and they're going to owe more postage on it. So just beware when you're at the post office not to grab these things without knowing how much the postage is going to cost on them. So I think that's about it. If you guys have any questions for me, any postal related questions about sending something, just leave it in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. Bye.